Good morning to all. Myself Dr.R.Preethi, working as Assistant Professor in Department of Computer Applications in Bishop College, Trichy. Today I would like to share a lecture on the topic Serializability in Database Management Systems. Before getting into the topic, actually the set of instructions that are transferred is said to be the programs in the programming languages, and a set of processes or jobs in operating systems. Similarly, in database management system, it is said to be the set of instructions are said to be the transactions. So here a schedule are running concurrently, it is said to be the schedule. The operations that are in a sequence which is performed completely in the database are said to be the schedule. Here these are the set of operations that are performed in a single transaction. There are two different types of schedules in DBMS. One is serial schedules and the other one is non-serial schedules. Here I am going to discuss the topic called serializable in non-serial schedules. In serial schedules, it is a type of schedule where the transaction is executed completely. Once a single transaction is executed completely, it goes for the next transaction. So it is said to be in a serial, in a cycle form. So it forms a cycle, and this type of schedule has no conflicts. Non-serial schedules, as this type of concurrent transactions, there are the transaction should be concurrently executed. So in non-serial schedules, there are interleaving of operations. In this type of schedule, it is prone to have conflicts. So serializability. Serializability is a concept to identify the non-serial schedules which are correct, and there are no. Serializability is a concept that helps to identify which non-serial schedules are correct and will maintain the consistency of the database, because a serial schedule is always a serializable schedule, because in serial schedule, once the first transaction is completed, only then the next transaction starts. So to identify whether the serial schedule is correct or not, we need to discuss on the topic called conflict serializability. So here a conflict serializable schedule can be transferred to a non-serialized conflict serializability. A schedule is called conflict serializable if it can be transformed into a serial schedule by swapping off with the non-conflicting operations. So a non-conflicting operations, to be swapped off, we must know what are the conflict operations. So the conflict operations are said to be conflicting if it satisfies all these three conditions. One thing is they should belong to different transactions. They should operate on the same data item, and at least one of them should be a write operations. So conflict can occur in operations such as in read write, write read, and write write. In all these operations, at least one must be a write operation. So these were the examples. A conflict operation pair can be like this. So this is one kind of transaction which occurs on operation A, because the same operation occurs on the same data item but between two different transactions. Here can we see these are two different transactions, and these are examples where conflict operations can occur between two different transactions. Here R1 is said to be the transaction that occurred in the read operation that has occurred in. So these are the examples for conflicting operation pairs that occurs in different transactions. There are two different transactions, namely T1 and T2, where the read operation occurs on the same data item and the write operation occurs on the next transaction, but between two same data item. Here this pair is also conflicting as it occurs on the same data item but between two different transactions. So on the other hand, here you have a non-conflicting pair where it occurs on different data items. So in order to identify whether the transaction is conflicting, and you have to find out with the help of a precedence graph. Here the transactions are referred to as a set of nodes, and the edges are said to be the operations on that data item. So, a schedule is said to be conflict serializable if there is no cycle in the precedence graph. So, here let us discuss with an example. So, here there is a schedule given and you have two different almost three different transactions here. Here R1, here we will discuss this concept with the help of an example. Here we can see a serial schedule which is given on three different transactions, namely T1, T2 and T3. So, these three are said to be the nodes, and you have different transactions. When it is a read operation, there is no conflict to be arise, and when this is said to be conflict where the read operation is done on the second transaction and the write operation is done on the first transaction. So, this edge denotes there is a conflict here, and this is a read operation on different data item. Similarly, here you have a write operation on the same data item, and this creates a conflict, and the third one is also a conflict. So, this forms a cycle. When there is a cycle in the precedence graph, it is not conflict serializable. So, this denotes, so this is another schedule which is given for as an example for conflict serializability, whether to identify whether the given schedule is conflict serializable or not. So, here we have four different transactions which has different operations on same data item. So, these are different transactions on same data item that forms the nodes as T1, T2, T3 and T4. So, these are the different transactions, and it starts from the read operation that is on T2, which is again conflict, and here the write operation on transaction 3 to transaction 1 is also a conflict, and similarly the write operations on T2 to T4 is also a conflict, and here the write operation on T3 to T1 is also a conflict. So, similarly from T2, similarly from T3 to T4 is also a conflict. So, this kind of transaction does not form a cycle. So, when there is no cycle found, this transaction is said to be conflict serializable. So, the next is about view serializable. As we all know, the conflict serializable schedules are always view serializable, but not all view serializable schedules are conflict. To summarize, serializability is always crucial for the maintenance of maintaining the consistency and reliability of database system where multi-user environment is included. So, it is mandatory to apply the principles of serializability to maintain the consistency of databases. Thank you.